You're watching The Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates.
This is East Carolina All-American Bryant Packard, and we're talking Pirate baseball and the Sports Objective.
You're listening to Extra Innings, presented by Next Level Training Center on The Sports Objective. Join us every Sunday night on Facebook Live and our YouTube channel as we talk East Carolina baseball, as we look back at the previous week and take a look at what's ahead. Now, let's talk Pirate baseball.
Welcome into Extra Innings here on The Sports Objective. It's our wrap-up show for 2023. We would obviously like to be talking about not saying wrap-up show at a super regional. And guys, before I get started, obviously some very sad news. My great uncle Roger Craig, who was the manager of the San Francisco Giants, passed away early Sunday morning. I actually got the news there at the stadium. So East Carolina, unfortunately, was losing, and then I got the news, but I thought it was pretty prophetic, like for me to get the news at a baseball game, because that's why everybody says, "Why do you love baseball?" It's because of my great uncle. He had a great life. He passed away at the age of 93. He had issues with dementia the last couple of years, so I'm glad that he's not in any more pain. And actually, the heart trouble that runs in our family got him, unfortunately. But just want to give him a shout out and thank him for all he did for baseball. 38 years in the major leagues altogether, and had a great career in the North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame. Thanks to Bubba, he sent me a picture back a few months ago with that. But I wanted to honor him and dedicate the show to him tonight and thank him for all he did for baseball, but certainly making me a fan. And Bubba Rosenbaum, how you doing, man? Appreciate you very much for behind the scenes. And obviously, this is not the night we wanted to have the wrap-up show, but I wanted to tell fans that 47 wins. Patrick and I were in the green room talking about this. For Pirate fans to say 47 wins like we're choking, it's unreasonable. It was a great season.
Yeah, no doubt. 47 and 19, tied with, I guess, the 1990 team, and then 2001 and 2019. Those 3 seasons, we had also won 47 games. We won a 4 straight conference title, or regular season title. So an awful lot of accomplishments. And like Coach Godwin said immediately after the game, and like he said in multiple interviews since, just take a deep breath. We all want Omaha so bad. It's like because of that goal of getting to Omaha, it's like at times, we don't appreciate a season like we had just because of the hurt of not getting to Omaha.
No doubt. And Matt Semenza, I know you've been there too, where you've lost big games, but guess what? You had a great career with the Pirates. You won a lot of big games. And, I was telling Patrick off air, to me, this is what I want Pirate fans to understand, is the fact that expecting us to go to Omaha every year is like expecting your favorite NFL team to go to the Super Bowl every year. It's not going to happen. And not making excuses for Cliff Godwin. He's the most competitive guy I know, maybe outside of Matt Semenza. But Matt, I know it hurts for those guys. It really hurts for the program, the coaches. It hurts for the fans. But at the end of the day, I'll take, we haven't lost a regional, guys, since 2018. Let that sink in.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, these guys did have a tremendous season. They obviously came up a little bit short, Patrick, in terms of their ultimate goal, which was getting to Omaha. But you look at the overall body of work, and another tremendous season. You really, when you watch this team compete, you just have a lot of respect because they come to play every night. They're never out of a game. You're always going to get a full 9 innings out of this team. And, when I look at them, I'll kick this back to you guys, but when I look to them, I really believe that this particular team maximized its ability. And that's really, all you can ask for in a season. So looking forward, though, to catching up with Patrick tonight and getting your thoughts.
Absolutely. The beat writer for the Daily Reflector does an excellent job. And you can go to reflector.com anytime like I do and read his work. Patrick Mason, a good friend now. Appreciate you, man, so much. Thank you for all that you do. I know you spend hours and hours. Do you ever get tired of the Pirates? Like being ECU, you're like for basketball, for men's and women's basketball, you're doing football, you're doing baseball. first of all, I know you got to love sports, but have you really grown to love the Pirates?
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely grown to love them, and that's the thing. Like when you do this job, you try to stay like objective and just kind of watch what's in front of you and try to be real about it. But I was telling some friends, like whenever I quit this job, I feel like East Carolina is going to be a team I'm going to follow, like forever. Kind of just you get to know the fans, the fan base, you get to understand them a little bit, and yeah, I'm kind of impressed just like how the fans really follow this team and love this team. Like if they're on the road, like you're going to see purple everywhere. And I think that's really cool. And yeah, it's been fun. Like I remember I was driving home from Charlottesville this weekend and I'm like, man, like how is baseball over? I feel like I spent my entire spring there, like every single weekend, like,
Right.
sometimes twice during the week. And it's like, now what?
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is that I think that I feel more like sad. This is one of the things, guys, I was thinking about is I will always be like pulling for the Pirates until I die when it comes to baseball or fill in the blank, whatever sport. I feel bad for the seniors. When you look at Lane Hoover, Carter Spivey, Garrett Sager, those guys put in 100 years like with the program. Look how many wins those guys. Look at all the battles they had. When you think about their last game, that's why I hurt, is thinking about they'll never put that uniform on again.
Yeah, that end of season press conference is always so difficult. And especially seeing Garrett Saylor, Carter Spivey, Lane Hoover up there, and they're talking about it. And like, it's very raw for them. But at the same time, they know like, man, like I'm not going to be able to put on this uniform again. And it's tough. But when we were talking to him about it, like Hoove, it's like he's going to remember his whole life, those jungle jumps and the whole stadium yelling Hoove when he comes to bat. And like, stuff like that, it takes, he's going to take with him forever. So that part's cool. But yeah, it's really tough when it comes to an end like that, especially for those seniors.
Bringing in Kyle from LaGrange Barber. What's up, dude?
What's going on, guys? For some reason, I think we're starting until 9. But anyway, I don't know what's been covered so far. But yeah, good season. Hate to see it come to an end. We should have been, obviously, to state the obvious, as Penn stated, we should have been hosting or at worst, my biggest gripe wasn't so much not hosting is you look at all the regionals around the country and you take the top 8 seeds, and if ECU was arguably a 1 seed, just if us and Southern Miss maybe perhaps were the next 2 left out from hosting, how in the hell are we the 2 seed at UVA? We should have we should have been the
Auburn.
2 seed at Auburn or Alabama or several different regionals. I think it was a brutal, and it wasn't fair to Virginia either. Now they came out of it unscathed, but if I was Virginia, I'd have been a little ticked off about getting us as a 2 seed.
It's almost like having 2 number ones, and you make a great point, Kyle. With all the fans talking about, that I'm hearing, like Kyle, you haven't heard this yet, but I was telling the guys behind the scenes that I was hearing some people say that we're choking, social media. Let me tell you something. Choking is Auburn. Choking is Alabama. Because
Dave, you get hung up on 1 or 2 people saying something negative. Most people don't feel that way.
I know.
Why even acknowledge those people? I mean, we didn't choke. Now, last year in game 2, we choked against Texas. We had that game won and we choked. But no, what happened at UVA was not choking.
No, they were the best team. They are a number 1 seed. But if you get a number 1 seed, you should win the regional, right? So that's what my point is. The people there was a couple teams in SEC, like Chuck said, SEC bias. Alabama and Auburn should have not been hosting.
No, Auburn was an absolute joke. If you look at that regional, and really they had an easy regional beyond Southern Miss with Penn and Sanford, and couldn't get through it. And to USM's credit, they came out the losers bracket, and now they're hosting Tennessee. And congrats to the NCAA committee for doing the right thing and giving Southern Miss the supers instead of putting it in Knoxville. I felt like they almost had to with giving the SEC 8 regionals and their performance, the league's performance in those regionals. And then Southern Miss won an SEC regional. So I felt like you had to put it in Hattiesburg, but I was scared they wouldn't. But, we're recapping the Pirates season. I'm getting off on a tangent about a lot of different things. But anyway, back to the Pirates.
Yeah. Did you guys feel like with the season as a whole, like, we were a bubble number 1 seed the whole time? Like it was a bubble number 1. So it was like, if you look at it, the season for me as a whole, going back to the 3 Campbell games, people said, why did we host? I would say the 3 Campbell games, the Houston series, and that Wichita State series were the reasons why we didn't host. Because if you flip, if you look at the Campbell games, I know Bubba helped me out. Wasn't it like 8 one-run games? So if you flip a half of those or a handful of those, we would definitely be hosting, and we lost by 1 run. It hurts.
Yeah, I know going into the postseason, the NCAA tournament, that is, obviously we had 17 losses, and at least 8 of those were by 1 run, and then we of course had a few by 2 runs, and so just some of those close games, be it the 3 against Campbell or you had a 1-run loss at NC State.
Carolina.
I think the sweep
in the North Carolina
really
game
hurt.
But you just really take a pick of any of those. Even with the sweep at Wichita State, if you win 2 or 3 of those 1-run games that we just mentioned, and instead of 45-17, if you were 47-15 or something of that nature, you're probably hosting because of the caliber of those wins. But like Cliff said, he said we quite frankly just didn't do enough. He said as much as it pained him to say it, Campbell deserved to host, even though they did. He said had they hosted, they would have deserved it more than us because they beat us 3 times head to head.
Hey, well, wouldn't they have? I don't know. You can argue that. I don't know how much better the American was than the Big South this year. On paper, it should have been a lot better, but it really wasn't. I think that's another thing that hurt us with going back and hosting is the American was a bad league this year, and I think in baseball, that is one way the American is improving. I don't think it is in football or basketball, but in baseball, with the additions of UTSA, Florida Atlantic. Both 2 pretty good baseball teams. Charlotte was a regional team, and Rice traditionally is a power. Maybe they'll get their baseball back on track, but I think conference the new American with this Conference USA schools coming in will have at least a significant more quad 2 wins next year, or we should, or an opportunity for that in league play.
Thank you, Kyle, for bringing that up. I was going to talk about that. And by the way, basketball is going to be better. FAU and UAB.
I don't know about better, but I don't think it's going to drop off.
FAU made the Final Four.
Right. Well, but still, you're talking about 1 year, Dave. You're talking about 1 year. I'm talking about traditionally Cincinnati, Houston, etc. Losing Houston, I mean, they're right now a top 5 program. So, I mean, I do think it's not going to be as big of a we're talking baseball, but I don't think the basketball league is going to take a big of a step back as like it would at one time.
No doubt. And Patrick, like you said, one of the things that Bubba and JR, Johnny Robertson, I know one of our great friends and viewers and listeners, they understand the RPI better than I do. But that's one thing I know Cliff talked about is he made a great point. And Kyle, you brought this up too. How can you lose? How can you not lose? How can you sweep USF and you go down 5 places, like in the RPI when you're winning on the road? It doesn't matter to me. You can't be penalized to me about the league you're in because you can't help that those guys are not as good. And I understand they're not SEC quality teams, but at the same time, we're still winning games. It's very difficult to win, especially in baseball when you have 56 regular season games. You're not going 56-0. So to me, that's one of the things that baseball has got to get their act together when it comes to college baseball is the RPI is all over the place, about as bad as umpires with a strike zone.
Yeah, that was Coach Godwin's thing, and I'm sure Patrick, having dealt with him game in, game out, and so forth, can elaborate some here as well. But that's what Cliff said. He said it blew his mind that because you get more points for a road win, so you win 3 road games, and like you said, you drop, as opposed to, he said, if we held serve, stayed where we were, then fine. But he said it makes no sense to win 3 games on the road and drop.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like going into every American series, you're thinking like it's a lose-lose situation, right? Like you either have to sweep and take care of business, but like one loss just craters you. And that was such a shame. I think we were talking or interviewing Cliff after the AAC tournament on that Zoom interview, and he was saying, like, for whatever reason, the conference just didn't help us out at all this year. It was a bad, essentially, said it's a bad conference, and it's not our fault. It shouldn't be our fault, but it didn't do us any favors at all. Like I said, if you lose, you're dropping 10 spots. If you win, apparently you're still going to drop, but you can't really control that, and it's just they didn't do them any favors no matter what they could do.
No, there was tons of quad 3, maybe even some quad 4 teams in the American this year. Bubba, I don't know if you have time to look it up, but I'm curious to know Charlotte, UTSA, Florida Atlantic, for example, and even Rice, despite their program being horrendous these days. How many of those teams are quad 2? I think the league should significantly improve from at least a quad 2 standpoint.
Yep.
Yeah, I know Charlotte, when they were entering the tournament, they were in the mid to high 60s, maybe 67th or something. But I'll have that information on those 6 teams here momentarily.
Okay.
Yeah, that really hurt. That hurt us. But this year with UTSA, like you said, Charlotte, there's good baseball that's coming our way, and so I'm really happy about that because I really believe the very fact that we will do fine. I bet with respect, another thing is I got to give credit for D1 baseball and all the polls. Not that they matter. I know Cliff doesn't, but if you look at it, they gave us a lot of respect this year, and we're not used to seeing that. How about Baseball America? They usually the guys on this show talk about ACC bias. They were so good to us this year. So I got to give a shout out to the polls. That means that our program, they respect our program even more than they ever have. So that's another positive.
Well, Dave, you want to talk about a real proof? Should we have hosted or not? The NCAA the Vegas odds, for teams to win the College World Series of the 64 teams that were in after the field was announced on Memorial Day, we were the 14th most likely team to win the national championship. So if we're the 14th most likely team based on Vegas odds to win the national championship, don't that ought to mean we should have had one of the 16 host sites?
Yes.
I mean, Vegas don't give a damn about what conference you're in. All they care about is money and odds, and that's a pretty good barometer of measurement to say if we should have hosted or not. The fact that we were 14 out of 64 on odds to win the national championship on Memorial Day when those odds came out.
I was going to say, and that just goes back to, like, if you're looking at RPI, like, does that really tell you what the best, teams are? And I don't think so. I don't think Cliff does either. And that's the thing. It's like, is RPI an end all be all? And apparently this year it was, but it definitely doesn't tell you who the best teams were.
No. And look out with our non-conference, and our strength of schedule was top 10, correct?
Give me a moment for that. I was actually on the RPIs for the incoming team, and then I'll get to that. But you have Charlotte 67, UTSA 75th, FAU 82nd, Rice 167th, and then UAB 189.
Okay, so three of them, if they hold serve from what they were last year, will be quad 2 wins if we were to go win those series.
Yes,
correct. And I was trying to explain to a friend of mine who's followed college baseball for a year, but was really confused about quad 1, quad 2, and I said, really, losing to a quad 1 opponent, if you can lose all your quad 1 games, and if you beat all the quad 2 opponents, your RPI is going to be almost in the top 10.
Yes, that's correct. And it just amazed me though, but I think. I swear our non-conference was something like 7th, and then like our strength of schedule was like for the RPI was like 9th or something like that. I mean, it was way up there. So that's another thing, Kyle.
Yeah, I got that information for the non-conference RPI 10th.
10th, okay.
The non-conference strength of schedule 11th.
Yeah, I mean, so that's doing all you can do in terms of what you can control with the teams you schedule non-conference. I don't think we need to do anything to strengthen our I mean, you look at the teams we played.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Indiana's playing Kentucky right now in the Supers.
Right.
You got of course UNC, NC State. Always good. Long Beach. They missed. Did they miss the Long Beach making in, guys? I'm sorry.
No, they were they had a decent year, but no, they did not make. They're 33-22, and they had an RPI of 87.
They were close. Okay. Well, nonetheless, our non-conference schedule is fine, and I think the league situation is going to improve itself. So if we come out of the season conference champions next year and have a similar record, and we're not hosting, something is very wrong.
And kind of going back to what you were saying about those Vegas odds, Kyle, and some projections from the guys at D1 Baseball, who I have a lot of respect for. I think they do a tremendous job of covering the game, and they had 11 writers that made predictions. 4 of those picked the Pirates, 7 picked Virginia, and that's about what I would have guessed, and perhaps even a little bit better than I would have guessed. I felt like going into the regional that we could definitely win it. Like if I had to have picked somebody, I think I'd have gone with Virginia, but would not have surprised me whatsoever. You saw in that winners bracket game, the Pirates lost 2-1, had a lot of hard hit balls, and that was just like I heard Mike Mullis and some others say. I mean, that was just the ultimate college baseball game. Very well played. You had a combined 14 hits between the two teams, but you had a lot of really well hit balls, and just didn't go the Pirates' way. And then we played very well on Sunday night for 6 innings, and then just ran into a wall there.
I think one of the bigger problems also with UVA was last time we went to Charlottesville, we won the regional. They came here last year. We eliminated them in the regionals. We scrimmaged them before the season. They know us. There's some rivalry there. It ain't like they were going to – sometimes coming in as a 2 seed, even in college baseball, though you shouldn't have this perception of East Carolina in college baseball like football. If you're going to come into the 2 seed from a it would have been nicer. It would have been nice to go to an Auburn or even a Kentucky or somewhere like that where maybe they're not as familiar with us, where we could have just came in and just beat the snot out of them. But Virginia they were sitting on go. I mean, they wanted that game. I mean, we've handled them. We've really owned them in the postseason. So it was. By the way, how many damn times are we going to play Virginia in the postseason in baseball? I mean, come on, City.
The game was very similar
like it's every year
last year, and I know Patrick, you were there covering that 4-2 game a year ago at Clark Leclerc, where both teams had 6 hits, and really it could have gone either way. Just like Saturday night, we made a few more plays last year; they made a few more this year.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that's the thing we talked about even with the Virginia coach Brian O'Connor, just about the nature of baseball, right? Like that winners bracket game, everyone's hitting the ball hard. They're hitting line drives right at people. And then the game winning hit is like he gets fisted on the inside of his bat and he just dumps one into right field. And that's the game winning hit. Like, sometimes you just got to tip your cap to baseball. Like at the end of the day, it's like you're hitting the ball hard. Either team could have won this game. And it's not like it wasn't uncompetitive. That was one of the more competitive games. It was probably the most competitive game all weekend.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And if you look
at that team, guys, I mean, they're just so explosive offensively. They present so many challenges for you, with Geloff and Teal right in the heart of that lineup. I mean, those 2 guys right there just present so many challenges for your staff and, and your pitching. And then obviously, you throw in the pitcher, Nick Parker, who transferred in, from Coastal and gave us so many problems last year.
And by the way, Matt, what are the odds of that happening?
Exactly. I mean, it's really – and, very slim, obviously. But the thing about Nick Parker is he played so well against us last year in the regional. He was extremely confident going into game 1.
Yep.
I mean, in his mind, he's saying to himself, hey, I've been here before. I pitched against these guys before, and I'm going to have a great game. So really confident player. What a huge addition for Virginia, Patrick. I mean, so when you look at this team, I'm just curious. I mean, what do you see as the potential for them moving forward here as we, get into the supers?
Yeah, I mean, I think the sky's the limit. Like, really, the knock on Virginia is just their pitching, and it's not like it's bad. I mean, like you said, that offense is incredible. Like the top 5 hitters, I mean, 2 of the guys are top 30 MLB prospects, especially Kyle Teal. I felt like every time he was coming up to the plate, something, he was going to make something happen. Geloff is, incredible hitter. And like you said, Nick Parker, when we were talking to the coach, he was saying him and his staff rewatched that ECU Coastal game when Nick Parker went to the transfer portal. And he was saying, like, that game right there sold us. To be able to perform like that in a hostile environment, in a regional, that sold him. Like, we got to get this guy to Virginia. And I'm sure they're thinking, hey, we're going to be matched up with ECU at some point down the road, and he's our ace in the hole. And that's exactly what he was. I mean, also, just like lineup construction too, with so many left-handed hitters. Nick Parker has one of the better changeups in college baseball, and that's just, everything just worked out well for them that day.
I think overall. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, you just Geloff and Teal. I mean, those guys are so dynamic. If you make a single mistake against those guys, they're going to take advantage of it all day. And, I was so impressed with both of those guys. And, Teal especially, I mean, he's just such a great offensive player. You hang anything over the plate and he's going to take advantage of it. So that's a team I really think, they can make some noise.
They could certainly win it all. And like you mentioned, with Geloff and the heart of that lineup, for the most part, we did a tremendous job. Geloff struck out 3 times on Saturday nights, and I may be mixing my games up. I know one of those games, it was the 6 and 7 hole that killed us.
Saturday night. It was Saturday night.
The 6 and 7 hole were the guys that killed us.
Yeah. I was going to say, for me, like when I think it was that Sunday night game when ECU is the home team, it just, kind of works out that way. And I'm thinking like, all right, we got Zach Root on the mound, and just how it shakes out, the visitors get the hit first. So like, you right off the bat, you got to work through that lineup, and that's so difficult. And, he was able to do that, just gave him a chance. I feel like just getting through that is the biggest sigh you can have. It's like, all right, now we can go. It's just tough when that team leads off with all those guys.
Yeah. When Zach Root made that play on the popped up bunt, I was like, okay, here we go. This is going to be our night.
And guys,
he had to get 4 outs in that inning too.
If you look back at the Sunday night game, in the 8th, with 2 outs, bases loaded, we were inches away from tying that thing up. And then who the hell knows what happens?
Yep.
Yeah, when that ball came off Jacob Starling's bat, I thought he maybe pulled it a bit more than what he did, but I knew it had a shot, and then of course they called it right there at the warning track.
Yeah, no, heartbreaking. I mean, I thought it was gone, and here we go, tied up. All the momentum, and unfortunately, it wasn't to be.
But hey, the cool part, just being in that moment, was it just sort of tells you how this team all year was able to battle back from different scenarios, like just, big picture stuff, losing the opening game of the tournament, having to battle back. But even like in microcosm in one game, you get smacked in the face there, you're up 2-1, and all of a sudden you're down 4-2. But then to be in that situation, to load the bases again, and just be in that spot to be one swing away, just kind of shows you the fight of this team and just how they were always there.
No doubt. And one of the things that people are asking is about, like, we'll get to that later on, but people are asking about who's going to be here next season and it's kind of hard to know, but we can talk about that. I know that Bubba, Johnny Robertson had a great point.
Yeah, we'll certainly dive into the 2024 roster here in a few minutes, but Johnny Robertson was talking about how well the Pirates ran the bases this year, and specifically stealing bases. You had a guy like Jacob Starling that I think it was 18 out of 19 or 19 out of 20. You had Nowak, who was so good. Lane Hoover, 13 out of 15, and then Nathan Chrisman. He would often be called upon in a pinch runner role.
Yeah, I actually asked Cliff about this after one of the games, just some, regular season game. I asked him about their success stealing bases, and he was saying that they really took a good view at it this year of being opportunistic about trying to steal in proper situations and really taking a hard look at like when are really good counts to run in, when are good situations to run. And you could see that they actually paid a lot of attention to it this year, and it really worked out.
And it was exciting. I love that brand of baseball. It's aggressive. And I know some people will say, oh my gosh, when they get thrown out. But to me, the small ball aspect, when You can bunt, the hit and run, the safety. How about one of my favorite plays in baseball would be the squeeze or safety squeeze. I don't know what it is, but it's just such a cool play. And I love the fact that Cliff Godwin has the balls, I'll say it, to do that.
Yeah.
with
And
one thing, too.
one thing about that, if we're gonna be playing that brand of baseball, and I hate to gripe, but we got to get better at bunting. And we're not a terrible bunting team, but as much as we attempt to bunt, fake a bunt, we need to make sure we execute at it 90% of the time. And I feel like we're more to 75% of the time, kind of average there on executing in those situations with the bunt. But small ball's fun. It is aggravating to get ran out of an inning, when you run yourself out of an inning. But if you can execute it, and we did, particularly with stealing bases more times than not this year, it's very exciting to watch and adds another element. Particularly, we had some power this year, but not as much power as last year. And if you're not going to have power, then being able to steal a bag is, it makes it a huge advantage.
Think about in those Oklahoma games, when we were looking for a spark, looking to establish an early lead, and especially that second Oklahoma game where they took the early lead, and then the Pirates were playing catch up. We, weren't having a whole lot of success offensively, and we laid down a few bunts, had a free pass or a few mixed in there, and then all of a sudden you have a 4 or 5 run inning, and then next thing you know, JJC is teeing off, and Justin Wilcoxon's teeing off, and that's really demoralizing, as we've said time and again about the effect of the short game, like we've become and so proficient at.
Yeah, it's a part of the game that some people avoid or they ignore, and I think it's reason why you see up on the screen there right now we have 47 wins. That kind of stuff is, and I think that as far as the Pirates are concerned, it's like we have a lot of talent, and those kind of things are the difference of winning and losing. And so for me, I love it. I absolutely appreciate that, JR, for putting that up there. And the flip side of that, guys, of the coin, if you will, is Wilcoxon throwing out so many guys like this year. I felt like our defense on stealing bases was also good. So you want to talk about stealing bases, and then your catcher is very good at throwing people out. Man, that's a huge advantage in my opinion.
Yeah, and just kind of like how Matt said at the top, of just like this team really did maximize the talent they had, and that's the type of the stuff that you have to do that, right? Like you do the little things well. You move guys along, you do some hit and run stuff, and then Wilcoxon taking a huge step defensively, just being able to throw guys out. Like in that Oklahoma game, in that losers bracket game in the first inning, Oklahoma's trying to push the envelope and start something, and he throws a guy out at second, and that turns out to be huge.
Yeah, I knew that was a point that you had made, Patrick, just talking about going into the regional. You heard about chaos and everything Oklahoma did, stealing close to 110 bases and just wreaking havoc with the way they play. And obviously we didn't allow a whole lot of traffic on the bases. That's part of it. But then when they did have traffic on the bases in that second matchup with the Sooners, they had a chance early to really build a 4 or 5 run advantage. And because of the Pirates' ability to control that chaos on the bases and some critical pitches there by different Pirate hurlers, you had a 1-run deficit or a 2-run deficit as opposed to a 4 or 5 run deficit. I want to say the Sooners probably left at least 5 or 6 in the first 3 innings.
That's right. It was a lot, and that's something to be proud of, because that was one, like, their ace in the hole, so to speak, is their base running and how great they were stealing bases. And we actually have improved, I think, like Johnny said, in that category. And next year will be even better. And guys, I don't know if you guys have anything else to say about this year, but we want to definitely talk about next season before we let I know, Patrick, I don't know how long you can stay with us, but certainly we wanted to talk about the 24 season before we go.
Yeah, I'll throw one at Patrick on that, just to kind of segue over, Dave. Patrick, when you watched I watched all these games on TV, just being so far away. I couldn't make the regional. But one of the things the ESPN broadcasters talked consistently about in every game was the fact that, we have so many lefty batters in the lineup. We're such a lefty-heavy lineup this year. What are your thoughts moving forward? Do you think we're going to make some attempts to diversify that a little bit? And do you think that that's something that kind of caught up with us a little bit this year?
Yeah, I think, ideally you'd love some more righties in that lineup. And like I was saying, like you had this feeling when you're at the game, and like I'm sure watching it as well, every time Jacob Starling came up, you were just like, it was like a breath of fresh air. Like, wow, like this pitcher on the mound gets a different look. He's not facing 7 straight lefties. And it also, it just makes it more difficult for opponents to just how they shake out their own bullpen and their pitching. Like if you're warming up a guy, or if you got, some late inning, issues, you could say, all right, there's 5 lefties coming up. I know who I'm going to go to my bullpen. And, and that's not to say East Carolina, that the left-handed hitters couldn't hit lefties, but you just want more balance. And I know I asked Cliff about it. It was that Long Beach State game in the Clark LeClaire Classic. I asked Cliff about it, and he was not happy about the question about, we're fine. But I'm sure he's thinking, yeah, we need some more balance. And I think that would go a long way just to help mix things up a little bit. And like I said, just at the very least, just get a different look for these guys, get them off their mark a little bit, just show a different look. And I think moving forward, you'd like to see at least, maybe if not even, maybe three righties or something, depending on how the lineup looks. You got to have some sort of balance in baseball.
Patrick, just to ask you, you mentioned talking to Cliff post game, and I know Dave's taking a part of some of those press conferences, but you do it on a consistent basis. Cliff seems to be a very intense guy post game. How is he intimidating when you're down there asking him questions, or how does he come across? Because he seems very tense after games.
Yeah, he's definitely really tense, and I don't know if intimidating is the word, but he's definitely like, he tries to stare through you. And I think what my read on it is he's a really good coach, and I really think he wants to control the message, and he wants to support his players. And I feel like a lot of the questions he might take being like you're questioning him, or you're kind of attacking some of his decisions, when really you're just kind of asking, you're just kind of curious. But yeah, he definitely has I think when he goes into those sessions, he's thinking like, all right, like, what am I going to get here? Like, how can I, bat this down, and how can I, kind of get my message across? And that's kind of how I view it. I definitely don't take it personally, but I think he's definitely, he doesn't like seems like he's being questioned, but really we're just kind of curious about, how this thing shakes out.
Well, when you're the head coach of any Division I program and you're successful, even if you're not successful, but you're going to be questioned, and more so if you're not successful. And I think Cliff realizes that. He just don't like it. But
right, yeah, he doesn't like it. But
hopefully we don't ever find this out. But God Almighty, if he ever goes somewhere like Oxford or Baton Rouge,
right, yeah, there's going to be more scrutiny in bigger places. I mean, it's just how it is. But I feel like at ECU, if you go to like a post game, I mean, there's a couple of TV stations. There's at least a handful of reporters there. I mean, it's a pretty good media contingent there as well. But that's the thing. Like we all got a job to do, and when you ask them questions, it's like, hey, I got something to write. People are wondering about this. Like I said, the only real dust up we had was when I was asking them about how many lefties they had in the lineup, and he did not like that. But it's a fair question because people are watching games as well, and they're wondering it as well.
Yeah, and going back to your question, Kyle, I think bringing Matt in. To me, there's similarities. I'm not saying they're the same person.
Logan.
Yep, Logan. Because Logan, when he saw that red light on, Patrick, I know that was way before your time, but Matt knows where I'm going, and all the guys do. Logan was the most intense guy as far as being a coach, but he was funny as hell off the air.
Logan hated the media.
But he was just like, and then I tell you, our buddy Pirate
And then
Al,
he became the media.
Yeah, exactly. Our buddy Pirate Al, when they used to they need to allow phone calls. It's ridiculous on the coaches show, or just don't have one. But anyway, yes, I said that.
It's not just us; it's everybody.
Oh, I know that, but still.
I agree with you. They're useless now.
Yeah, they're passé. But Pirate Al is one of our good friends, and but even back in the day before I knew Pirate Al is legendary, and he would ask. It's the same thing as the media. He would ask legitimate questions. Al's not saying like, we have a lot of respect for Al. Al's not saying, Coach Logan, you suck, you're a terrible. None of that kind of stuff, right? He's asking a legitimate question, and and Logan be like, I don't know, Al, blah, 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 like, and he's like John Wayne to him. It's like,
you want a funny? I'll give you a funny story real fast. The greatest, I'm notorious for back in the day, my calls on Pirate Radio when Jeff Confer was here and Scotty Montgomery was head coach, and I was being fed information by a group of people that really have some they're in the know about Jeff Confer and Cecil Staten, and I was the one in charge of getting it out there because I really don't have an important job to worry about. So I was being fed a lot of information, calling in Pirate Radio and saying stuff. And but anyway, one of my greatest phone calls ever. This is just a personal thing, just a coach show. I think y'all will find this humorous. So, Bub, I might have told you this story before. I'm not sure. When Ellis Johnson was the head coach of Southern Miss, one of my best friends in the world is a Southern Miss fan. And I knew he'd be listening to the college show. If you guys remember the disaster that was Ellis Johnson at Southern Miss, where he turned a 12-win season, he turned a 12-win football team into an 0-12 team the very next year, and weren't even competitive. But Ellis was getting phone calls, people asking him to resign and step down, and I called in as Kyle from Greenville, North Carolina. I said, hey, I'm an East Carolina fan. We play in the same conference as Southern Miss. And, I said, I actually would really like for you to stay the head coach of Southern Miss, and all these people asking you to step down, I think it's a crying shame, because as long as you're at USM, the Pirates will have a guaranteed win every year. So please stay in Hattiesburg.
Wow.
I think just capping that too. I feel like just as we get further, like we're in year 2023, I feel like there's so many different media entities. Like these coaches and these programs, I think like need the media less and less to get their message out. And I feel like a lot of them are starting to see this as a chore to talk to us. After a win or a loss, they got to stand up there and answer to whatever. And but it's part of the job, and they got to do it. But I think it's just like to them, it's like a less and less necessity for them to do it.
Yeah, Bubba, they've actually he had to talk about, well, just think about all the crazy stuff that happened, getting thrown out after a game. He and Moylan, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I mean, it was a bizarre, if you think about it too, as far as Cliff being a coach, if you're looking at through the lens of
what the hell was the whole story with the peanut butter and jelly sandwich incident?
Well, that was a prop.
Well, as it turned out, it was not a Uncrustable. It was a Jersey Mike's number 8.
Oh, okay.
So they apparently, had maybe a party tray of Jersey Mike's number 8 in the or whatever subs in the dugout, and the way the umpire wrote it up in his report, it said that Josh Groves grabbed a handful of deli meat and shoved it down his teammate's throat.
That would never ever happen. No dude is going to ever do that to your friend. I don't care if it's celebratory or not.
And Josh Groves said,
I could totally see a couple guys doing that, just having fun with each other.
It's just a bad rule that
is totally innocent. That it was just, he was there eating the sandwich, and then Starling happened to lead off the bottom of the first with the home run, and he still had
wasn't planned.
The last couple bites of his sandwich, and so he said, "Here, Jacob, you deserve this." Basically,
yeah. Who gives a shit? I mean, that's just totally ridiculous. I mean, just completely ridiculous. It's an umpire that's taking his job way too seriously.
And then they said the warning came when he said that he told them to back up, and then they didn't back up, and then so it resulted in an ejection.
Yeah, that was, to me, that was being bigger than the game. Not getting off a tangent of umpires, but to me, kicking a guy out for that, it's not like that he charged the mound or anything like some of the stuff we've seen in Major League Baseball.
There was no he shoved his meat in anybody's mouth.
Wow. So anyway, so that was great. I'm just saying it was a crazy year with different things happening. And that's what coaches don't want to talk about, is like that kind of crazy stuff happening. And
kind of taking this back toward baseball, at least a little bit, and then we'll get get toward the 2024 roster, but kind of what Patrick was saying earlier. They're most definitely stupid questions, and but at the same time, I think a lot of those reasonable questions, like Patrick was saying, Cliff knows that, especially after a loss, he doesn't want to address those. That he's talking with the media. He's not having a conversation, with the coaching staff. Some of the questions are legitimate, but they're not going to be received well because of when they're asked. Because he's talking, like I said, to the media, not Jeff Palumbo or Austin Knight.
Right.
Yeah, and just real quick on that too. I think it was a Sunday game when Virginia, they're going to their bullpen and they're trying to play matchups. Remember that the one pitcher, I think he's Virginia's potential quarterback, but he pitched through one pitch to Jacob Starling. He was a right-hander, and then they immediately went back to a left-hander. So they're playing matchups, and if you have, all right, we got Jacob Starling out, now we got 7 straight lefties. It's easier for them to play matchups. So I think it's a valid concern moving forward.
I'll tell you, if you could have seen that pitcher's face on TV, guys. I mean, you were in the stadium. Kyle, you were watching it on TV, but he was so pissed. I mean, to come into a game like that and throw one pitch and then get yanked, I mean, that's got to hurt your pride, especially when you're in a regional, you're on national TV in front of your home fan base. I'll tell you, I almost felt bad for the kid for a second there. Not too bad, but a little bit.
But
just a matchup thing, and obviously people that follow the game closely realize that Cliff Godwin's not the only one that will make a move like that. But that's one of those things. It's a thing of the past in the MLB because now you have the minimum there where you can't just come in and throw one pitch like you used to.
The lefty specialist in Major League Baseball is gone, and that's why it is a lefty specialist. It's hard to hit against lefties for whatever reason. There's a funky delivery sometimes, and it is what it is.
No doubt. Let's move on to 2024. I just want to get your early thoughts on the team next season, and I'll start with Patrick being our guest.
Yeah, so I guess just kind of big picture. I guess we could start with pitching. I think the starting rotation is pretty bright. I think Zach Root will definitely slide into a weekend rotation slot. He was their midweek starter for most of the year, and you could see he pitched really well in the regional. Trey Savage, I'm sure he still has another step to climb, and he was phenomenal in his first year as a starter. I know his arm kind of got tired out there near the end of the regular season. But just I think the weekend rotation especially is really bright. Even if you look at a guy like Jake Hunter, I remember him as a true freshman last year. He was throwing about 88, 89 miles an hour, and he was up to about 92, like low 90s this year. So just adding ticks to the fastball was huge. Maybe we could see him. I guess 2024, Josh Moylan, if I had to guess, he might be a draft candidate. He's probably gone. He had a really strong year, and he was probably the team's best hitter all year, consistent best hitter. But I think a lot of this bulk will come back. I'm sure some players have decisions to make, like Wilcoxon. He's a 4-year player. He has a decision to make on draft and stuff like that. But, yeah, I mean, even a guy like Joey Barini, I'm sure all of us were thinking, I don't know, is this the right move at shortstop? I mean, going into the year, he was pegged as a starting shortstop, and I mean, I'll admit it, I was kind of shaky about it. I don't know if he's, the long-term answer here, but he was a great bat. I don't know if his range and stuff can play like that, but he was pretty good. So I think you're going to miss some pieces for sure. Like I said, Josh Moylan, but I think the starting rotation looks really good. And I guess we'll have to see what some of these guys do with the draft.
Yeah, my take on next year, you wonder who's going to enter the portal. Hopefully not many. Hopefully we keep most of our guys. The big controversy. Cliff doesn't like the portal. Doesn't like working the portal. He indicated that he would work it some this year. Just not overly. I actually, understand he prefers culture and he wants to have players and develop them and get his, have them be a part of our culture. But speaking of our culture, our fan base in our stadium, Long Beach State did a video that was on Twitter, and almost every one of their players they were being asked what was their favorite away game this year, and almost every one of their players said Greenville, Clark LeClaire. And somebody had us as the best college baseball stadium and or best atmosphere in all college baseball. And I would think the portal, a lot of guys he might be really well in the portal because guys want to come here to experience this atmosphere, because there's a lot of good baseball players out there, but there ain't a lot of places that have the kind of atmosphere that Clark LeClaire has and the kind of fan base we do, particularly outside of the SEC. I would venture to say outside of the SEC and Big 12 and maybe Clemson from the ACC, we might have the best fan base in all of college baseball.
Yeah, and just going off the portal stuff too, the way I took it was he's not going to, I guess, build this team with a core through the portal. But I think he's going to look. Right. Yeah, but he's going to, he's going to look at some pieces and say, hey, we need this bullpen arm, or hey, maybe we need a third baseman or a first baseman this year. And he can go find guys like that. But I don't think he's ever going to build it through the portal. But yeah, I don't think he's going to just, not look at it at all. He's definitely going to find some guys and try to get them here.
Yeah, because we've done it in the past, especially the relief pitchers, Tyler Brott, Willie Lumpkin, going back a couple years.
Carter Cunningham, right?
Yeah, Ben Terwilliger. Carter Cunningham had begun his career at Gardner Webb. So, yeah, we've certainly done it in the past. And that was the thing, some people, and those people that are wanting us to be very active in the portal. And from what I've heard, I think we are fairly active in the portal right now.
We already are.
Yeah, and just this is something that Cliff put out on social media. He said we actually develop and get guys better in our program, so we don't always was the key word. We don't always have to hit the portal. He didn't say we're not going to hit the portal. We're not going to recruit the portal. That we don't always have to hit the portal. So that means, if you lose a guy like a Thomas Francisco, you have someone like a Josh Moreland waiting in the wings to take over that position. Yep. Or if you lose a Connor Norby, you have a Jacob Starling. If you lose some of the very talented players we've lost, if you lose someone like a Gavin Williams, and then you have somebody ready to slide in, not necessarily at that level, but not too far off that level that has the potential, like a Trey Savage, to maybe be pretty close to a Gavin Williams or whoever down the road. So they've done such a tremendous job of stacking talent with these recruiting classes that I definitely think, because I know last year we were active in the portal because of the shortstop situation, as well as the other positions that we've referenced, and didn't work out with those portal options for shortstop. But unfortunately, Joey Barini stepped up, and if you'd have told us prior to the year, or even a few games into the season, taking a look at these numbers right here, Joey Barini, second on the team, actually tied for the team lead with Justin Wilcoxon with a .318 batting average.
Wow, I didn't even realize that.
4 home runs, 35 runs batted in, and then defensively, let's see, Joey Barini finished the year, I think he had 9 errors, so not bad at all. That's very similar to what Pirate shortstops have done in years past. And like Patrick said, maybe his range wasn't quite as good as the Turner Brown or Ryder Giles or Zach Agnos, but he made some tremendous plays. And if you'd have told us we're going to get those numbers at the plate and those numbers in the field prior to the year, we'd have been tickled to death.
You probably wouldn't have done much better with any of the guys from the transfer portal.
No. Matt, what you were going to have a comment. I know you want to say something.
It's a new day in college sports. We're seeing this in basketball and football, obviously baseball we're talking about tonight, but developing players in your program and hitting the not finding a guy with 3 years of eligibility left, you can still develop those players. So I think the portal gets kind of like
playing the part of Bubba's internet tonight is Matt.
Yeah, okay, I thought it was me. Okay.
No, it's Matt.
connotations.
I think it's the wildfires burning up the from Canada, burning up the lines in Connecticut there.
Yeah, we can't see Matt tonight. That's why he's got the avatar up. But
Matt, your internet connection is horrible tonight, man. Just shut up, Matt. Shut up. Mute yourself.
Nothing like a live.
Matt, are you on your phone or your laptop?
I actually think he's on a CNC.
Oh my God.
Matt's never had issues like that from home.
No, he's at home too. It's crazy.
Okay, we'll come back to Matt in a moment, but we've kind of already gone down this path a little bit.
Lag here
because
Bubba mute him
because Patrick mentioned Josh Moreland, and Josh will likely have a decision to make, and we'll see where he goes and how much money he's offered. But you also have guys like a Josh Groves who had a very solid season, AMAC, and some other ones, potentially a Jacob Starling. The thing is now with the draft just being 20 rounds, in the past, you had to perhaps sweat it out a little bit more. But, Patrick, what are your thoughts on some of those guys that I just named and, where things may end up here in a few weeks?
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. Like you mentioned, the draft is 20 rounds, so it's tough to test those waters sometimes. I think we can start with Josh Groves. I feel like he totally looks the part. I feel like scouts really like his stuff. He throws hard. He's got a really nice slider. We saw sometimes or multiple times this season when he's on, he's pretty close to unhittable. But also on the flip side, he has control issues. We saw that even in the regional. It's just a lot of walks, and I think that might scare some scouts away as well. But a lot of these professional sports, you get into these coaching staffs and they think, hey, we got the best coaching staffs. We can figure this out. We can get this guy right. So I think Josh Groves could be he might be a guy who could go just because, especially the pitching position, that's very, very sought after. So Josh Groves is definitely a candidate to go. AMAC, for some reason, I just don't know if he's that guy this year. I think this year kind of hurt him a little bit. Part of it was some injury issues didn't let him to be a switch hitter. He's really good defensively, but I just don't know if the draft is his avenue this year for sure. Jacob Starling's another one of those real, like maybe tweener kind of guys. I mean, personally, I think he would probably serve well to come back and play again.
I agree.
Although it is tough when you're at the end of your college rope, as we saw with Bryson Worrell, a terrific player, premium position center fielder, just doesn't have leverage when you're at the end of the rope there. And so, Jacob Starling's another guy who's super talented, but he might be better, playing another year. I'm trying to think who else can kind of make that move. I think Justin Wilcoxon, really good defensive catcher. And when you get to the pros, defense is all that really matters in catching. He had a really good arm this year. He could probably serve to do a little bit better, blocking some pitches and stuff like that. But overall, I thought his defense was pretty outstanding. And he hit this year too. He was one of the team's better hitters. So that might be another guy who goes. And also, we're talking about 2024. I think Ryan McChrystal's future on this team or his playing time really hinges on what Justin Wilcoxon decides to do. If Wilcoxon goes, I think, Ryan McChrystal is that dude now. And if Wilcoxon comes back, it comes a little more hairy there, but it'll definitely be interesting with some of these guys coming up.
Yeah. Wilcoxon, someone I did not name, but like you said, just an excellent year, picking up the slack with Ben Newton departing. And then you had Wilcoxon, like I mentioned, tied with Joey Brini for the team lead in batting average, 318, 9 home runs. Also tied for the team lead with 20 doubles with Josh Moylan. And then he drove in 49. And like you said, and did an excellent job of throwing out base runners. His blocking and receiving could improve at times, but a lot of that perhaps attributed to McChrystal not being available as they anticipated prior to the season.
Yeah. How often is your catcher going to lead your team in doubles?
Yeah, he slugged this year. He was a great hitter, and that's the thing. Like when you look at catchers, all you really expect is great defense. Hitting is a cherry on top, and he was able to do all of it this year. And he caught literally basically every single inning. At the end of that year, and he was a warrior back there. And also, I mean, you can catch like Trey Savage. He has one of the best split finger fastballs in all of college baseball. So when that thing's bearing down at you, 90 miles an hour, it's tough to stop. So I mean, I thought he had a great year this year.
You also associate doubles with having a little bit of speed. So really odd to see a catcher with so many doubles.
Yeah, I think, guys, when you're talking about Starling as a guy, he's the question mark for me, Patrick. You were talking about, I don't know how you guys feel about it. So, I can argue, I'm glad you brought that up, Pat. The fact that I can argue, I could see it either way. It's like, it sounds like I'm being indecisive on it, but I could clearly see him leaving, but yet I could clearly see him coming back another year. And again, draft status, that stock, I think it would serve. You're absolutely right. He's a guy on the baseball team that is so close. He's like on the bubble for me as far as being as far as major league draft is concerned, as far as being a draft pick. And I think his stock will go up. He's like so clutch for our team. Just imagine, another thing is, when you not only the draft part, but also what do we have coming back? We could easily go to a Super Regional Omaha next year. And maybe that's not important to guys, but you understand why Moreland goes. A lot of other guys, like you talk about Groves, there's certain ones you understand why they go, but then there's other ones like Amac and Starling that could really use another year, I believe, and their draft status could potentially skyrocket.
I think you got guys that just get itchy to play at that next level, and it's not just in baseball; it happens in all sports. Look at the huge mistake C.J. Johnson made in football, for example.
Yeah, that was one of the points I was going to make. Thank you, Kyle. I'm getting old. I was going to make that point earlier. C.J. Johnson. Well, another thing is don't leave the practice early, but that's why he got waived. It wasn't his talent. It was.
Well, that's a maturity issue, Dave. Which I said is something that coming back another year could benefit him.
No question. Never about talent. And what do you think, Bubba? You have your nose as far as like knowing guys. Do you think those guys leave? Who do you think is going to stay and go? I know it's a guessing game, but what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, my guess, I'd say I'd be a little surprised if Josh Moreland's back. I think he'll likely. I mean, this is not based on anything I've heard whatsoever, just based on the season that he had. And something that we really hadn't talked about, what a good eye Josh has at the plate for someone that hits with that kind of power. I'd be a little surprised if he was back, but who knows? And then Patrick made. I'm not going to rehash all the points Patrick made as far as Josh Groves. He did a pretty good job of saying what he brings to the table, and then also where he needs to work with that command. But something I put in our comment section, in 76 and the third innings, he allowed just 59 hits, and opponents hit just 215 against him. So, when that command was spot on, he was pretty lights out. But, it's just a matter of if he was going to have a game where he was going to walk one, or was he going to have a game where he was walking 4 or 5. So, but yeah, he certainly has the stuff, and kind of transition away from the draft and, back to the pitching staff for 2024. We talked about Trey Savage and Zach Root. They're very likely, obviously, if you have Groves coming back, he would be in that mix. That could very well be your rotation, whether it's your Savage, Groves, Root, or your Savage, Root, Groves, whatever. But another to keep in mind, Jake Hunter, like Patrick mentioned,
yeah,
he has the potential to bust into the rotation. And then you also have a guy that we didn't see a lot of great things out of him this year, but you saw it in the conference tournament, Jaden Winter. And Jaden Winter, he's 6'5", has a 95, 96 mile an hour fastball. So depending on what type of strides he makes this summer and in the fall, going into the 2024 season, he's a guy that could, very well make a huge jump and be in that role, or at least in maybe a midweek starter role.
Yeah, guys, he's one. I'm glad you brought him up, Bubba. He's a guy, Patrick and Matt and Kyle, that like he's one of those dominant like kind of pitchers. I like a Gavin. Not that he's the same as Gavin Williams, but he'll throw it by you. He doesn't care, and I really liked him a lot. I thought he has is he a freshman or sophomore?
Jaden Winter was a sophomore.
Sophomore, yeah, okay.
Yeah, because he was. I think he actually got a midweek start last year at Elon, and then either in that game or shortly after that, he got injured.
That's why. Okay. All right, I thought it was a sophomore, but I couldn't. I was like, well, maybe. But he definitely has a lot of promise, and he's another guy that I think we're going to be deep. And I don't even know. Maybe you guys do help me out. I'm not big on recruiting, and our good buddy Igo does an excellent job at hoistthecolors.net. He's the recruiting guy, but guru, if you will. But I don't know what we have coming in. But man, the pitching is deep, and you look at if Starling were to go, I think Nathan Chrisman will be a guy that I put at second base. I don't know how you guys feel, but I think he would be excellent at second base. Moylan, I mean, you can put guys there easily. Not that he didn't play great defense, but there's other guys that are ready to step up.
And continuing on with the pitching staff and guys, do we have any?
Is there a child being murdered at one of y'all's houses?
Yes, that's my son Riley.
Well, you better go save him, Bubba.
But we talk about the pitching depth of this staff. Danny Beal, Wyatt Lunsford, Shinkman, Landon Ginn. Three consistent relievers, and they're going to be back. As it appears, 424.
Yeah, pitching, we're definitely in a very good shape. No matter what happens, even if Groves goes, I know Patrick. I just feel like he should come back. I know that maybe I'm being biased because I'm a Pirate guy, but the points that you made earlier about him, that the control issue, he's like so close that if you could have another year with Alston Knight and another year of experience, I understand the whole MLB thing, but man, I just feel like he's another one that is on the bubble. There is like Moreland's a definite for me. But most of the guys are kind of like, I can argue both ways. Like, yeah, you should stay. Oh, I could see you going. But Groves is another one that I really like and hope he comes back.
Yeah, I think we could even see like Lunsford Shankman making his way into the rotation as well, just because he showed the ability to pitch multiple innings. So yeah, the pitching is in good shape, I think, moving forward.
What about our good buddy Shell Powell is asking about Palumbo, about him leaving, taking a coaching job. Have you guys heard anything? He was saying something on the internet, but I haven't. He's always up for jobs because he's awesome. But I think he stays.
Go ahead, Kyle.
I was just going to say, I think if he gets the right head coaching opportunity, it'd be hard to turn it down, but hopefully he stays.
Yeah, a season ago, he turned down the VCU opportunity. From what we were told. So I think it has to be the right opportunity because he has an excellent job right now, and he's not going to just leave East Carolina for any head job. I thought he may at least get a little bit of a look for a job like UCF, but at the same time, I'm not shocked that he didn't, just with him going into the Big 12. It has nothing to do with Coach Palumbo's ability to take that job and to excel at that job. I just had a gut feeling that UCF would try to make a, quote, splash hire, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. And it would be very, very intriguing if they make the hire. And I'm sure, Patrick, you've seen this on social media. I know, guys, I shared it with you in the group text earlier. And that's Joe Girardi, the former manager of the Philadelphia Phillies and New York Yankees. There's the word on the street from UCF sources and other folks in college baseball, like Kendall Rogers. He confirmed the UCF source saying that this is, in fact, accurate, that Joe Girardi is up for that job in Orlando.
Let me ask you guys a question.
Good, he'll kill them like he killed the Yankees.
Let me ask y'all a question.
For the White Sox job.
I have a good question. I don't know his background or in general the success rate of major league managers going down to the college ranks. It's a totally different game. But how much do you think the transfer portal changes that versus having to go recruit high school and develop players? If you got a major league manager with a big name that goes to a UCF in Orlando, which is a nice area to live in, they can work the portal, see talent on tape that's already developed, and get them to come. Do you think that kind of changes things a little bit now for guys coming from the professional league ranks to coach in college?
It's definitely interesting. And just like even just the Palumbo thing, I feel like teams just even across all levels of this sport are just trying to poach like smart people from programs. Like they're looking at Palumbo and saying, hey, East Carolina is doing a lot with what they got. And they're, that's why they're looking at him. And yeah, they're, like you said, even with Girardi coming through, yeah, you're just trying to find people who have done this and who are smart people, teams are trying anything. We just need smart people in baseball. And I think that's the trend right now.
But specifically, do you think it changes? Anybody want to take this? If you've coached in the professional ranks, particularly the major leagues, you don't know nothing about recruiting. Do you think the transfer portal changes that for guys that don't have a recruiting background?
Oh, no doubt about it. I'll jump in on that one. There's no doubt. I mean, a guy like Girardi, he's a lifetime, majors guy, long career in the majors. Right. He doesn't know anything about recruiting. He doesn't know much about, he doesn't have relationships at the high school level with different coaches. So if he was to take a job like that, he's going to look for the easiest path, or not the easiest, but the quickest path to success. And the one thing about the portal is that, it's not quite as prevalent in baseball as you see in other sports now. And I hope it doesn't become as prevalent, honestly. But, he's the type of guy where he would try to make moves quick, almost like a Deion Sanders in Colorado, and make a big splash. So I think that's a fair point.
You would have to hire, before we let you go, Patrick, I know you got to run. If you're Girardi, you need to get a guy like a Palumbo. Not that I want him to leave and go to Orlando for UCF, but and didn't Palumbo, he's already coached there, right? At UCF?
Yes.
Yes. So he already has that knowledge. I'm not trying to make the case. So anybody listening right now, I'm not trying to start rumors, but I'm just simply saying a guy that already knows the area. He already knows he's a hell of a recruiter. He's the recruiting coordinator now for East Carolina. He's the guy behind the scenes that, you see Cliff gets a lot of glory, but Palumbo doesn't get enough credit. And I'm not knocking Godwin, but definitely if you're UCF, you need a guy that understands the college game like a Palumbo.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Especially just the knowledge of what goes on. I mean, having been in this program for 9 years now, it just that mind is just invaluable, I'm sure.
Well, Patrick, do you have anything before we let you go about maybe the wrap up the season or for 24 coming up for baseball?
Yeah, just that it was a really successful season. I don't think there's, I think as we talked a little bit about before we hopped on, but like it is a really successful year for these guys. 47 wins is something that probably 95% of the country would kill for. They lost 6 games in conference and then they won the whole thing. And, they were chasing, they never gave up. I just thought it was a really strong year, and I think that the future's still bright. Just because they didn't make it this year, I mean, the future's still bright, and they're going to get there eventually.
And Gilbert on the selection committee starting next year, and if you don't think that makes a difference, ask Auburn.
Exactly. We want you to plug your social media, and of course, about the Daily Reflector, where everybody can read your articles.
Yeah, you can read me on the Daily Reflector, reflector.com, and follow me on Twitter at PM222. I'm always tweeting about some sort of sports, baseball and stuff, and a bunch of ECU news. So appreciate you guys, having me on and following along as well. It was a fun year.
No doubt. Have a good one, bro, and we'll talk to you again soon. Have a good summer if we don't talk to you before the fall.
Yeah, we'll see you down the road for sure. Thanks, guys. Right.
Have a good one. Good night. Bye-bye. Appreciate Patrick very much. I know that he's got to run. So, Matt, what do you think? I don't think that fans need to be in the panic room. I think things are good for the state of the program. Everything is going right. By the way, one thing I want to mention to you guys, I know you guys are not maybe necessarily NIL, but I think that's a game changer for this Pirate baseball team is a lot of people giving to, there you go. Thank you. Trust Coach Godwin. Absolutely. It's NIL money at teamboneyard.org. Give the money there, and you can specify it to go to baseball or even a certain player. And if we could get that stupid rule that the NCAA has about 11.7, but if you could get money and we could kind of be an equalizer and have more guys, quote unquote, they're not under scholarship, but it's the same difference. Money is money. So I just want to get your feeling about NIL. And I think that's one thing that for me has really been an eye opener for this season.
Yeah, I'll just jump in on that real quick. I mean, the bottom line is nobody needs to be in a panic. I mean, Cliff Godwin has built a foundation here, incredibly solid. He has a proven track record over the course of several years now. So
9 years.
9 years. So no reason for panic. No reason for any type of a major overhaul.
I don't think anybody is panicking.
Yeah. I mean, my feeling on it is this. Here's my feeling on it. When you look at this team and you evaluate it in the offseason, you're asking yourself, what can we do to get to that next level? What are the pieces we need to bring in to go from a team that is having incredible success? Don't get me wrong. I don't want to shortchange it. A team that's winning regionals, this year played tough against a number one seed, Virginia, came up a little short. But what are you going to do this offseason to potentially take yourself to the next level? And for me, I would like to augment slightly with the portal. I don't want to go crazy with it, but I think anywhere from 3 to 5 guys,
Right.
bring in a few power bats. But that's really where we're at. Kyle, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's my thought process on it.
No, you didn't cut me off. I just jumped in on what you were saying about the whole panic thing. I don't think anybody's panicking.
Well, there's a lot of people mentioning. Well, the reason I say panic room and the panic is the fact that all I've heard this week is about transfer portal.
Oh, did you hear 1 or 2 people say something and they get hung up on it, and they're convinced Cliff is not going to get anybody from the transfer portal at all, and they're also worried that we're going to lose a ton of players. I think, depending on the draft, is how much Cliff will work the transfer portal. I think we do need a little more power in the lineup, as Matt mentioned. But beyond that, I trust Cliff if he if it don't work. Look, if we start going backwards, if this next year we're a 3 seed, and the next year after that we miss a tournament, then he'll have to change his strategy. But until his strategy isn't working, keep doing what he's doing, and
right.
Yeah, get a couple guys out the transfer portal. If we lose more guys to the draft than we expect, or we have some guys into the transfer portal from our end, then you might need to work the transfer portal more. But we also don't know what we have behind them that we haven't seen. Like he says, he develops players. So we'll see. I believe in Cliff. I get frustrated at times too. There was a game after that Campbell game this year, going before the conference tournament, I was about to lose my mind. I was just angry. So sometimes it's just reaction and emotion. But I think the fan base trusts Cliff. If they don't, they should. It's frustrating. I was looking at Southern Miss because, besides East Carolina, it's the program I'm closest to because I got 2 really good friends that are Golden Eagles, and, they're hosting Tennessee, and if they win that Super, this is going to be their second trip to the College World Series, and they've been to half the NCAA tournaments that we've been to. So, yeah, it gets to be a bit frustrating and aggravating when all these other teams go to Omaha and we don't, but we'll get there, and once we get there, I think we'll probably make it back for the second. Put it like this. Once we make it there the first time, it won't be another 32 NCAA tournaments before we go again.
No doubt. And, Duke could actually, they beat Virginia 2 out of 3 times. They could go to Omaha this year.
Yeah, I know you'll be super happy if they do, Dave. But personally, I want the team that beat us to go to Omaha.
No, I'm just saying, my point is that I know I was talking about your frustration with.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry I took that wrong. Yeah, I hope the hell they don't go to Omaha.
Yeah. I mean, the fact is that they literally, they played Virginia well. We'll see. It
could be more difficult. It's hard to beat. If they can beat UVA 4 times in Charlottesville, more power to them.
Yeah, I think UVA's lost 4 games at home all season, and 2 of those were to Duke. So, just my gut feeling, could Duke win it? Sure they could, and they've already taken 2 out of 3 from UVA, like I just mentioned. But if I had to make a prediction on that Super Regional, I would take the Wahoos.
Yeah, me too.
That's Duke against that pitching. the starting pitching. But once you get in that bullpen and the bats of Duke is what I'm curious to see. It's going to be interesting to watch that super regional.
Yeah, no doubt. And I definitely hope that's an interesting thing. I had this conversation with somebody that was, saying they were hoping Duke was going to win that regional. I was like, "Are you out of your mind? Just because you're angry that Virginia beat us? I mean, I want the team that beats us to win the national championship, quite frankly."
I think if we'd have gone to Conway, I think we'd have done the exact same thing that Duke did. I think we would have come out of there, but that doesn't matter because it didn't happen. But
we thought, a lot of us thought that it would be us hosting Duke or Duke hosting us at DBAP, and it didn't happen. But you got to tip your hat to Chris Pollard. I think he's done an excellent job as a coach. I really like him a lot. He not just because he's come on our show a lot, just about every single year that we've since 2019, he's done a great job promoting his program. He's getting great guys, and I thought that speaking of the portal, Pollard did an excellent job of going. He knew what he needed to do to upgrade the team. He did that. So if there was definitely a blueprint as far as that, or a guy like a Justin Hare who's up for big jobs now, he basically built him and Robert Woodard at Charlotte. They built their whole teams on the transfer portal. So if you want to make cases, those are three cases for the transfer portal right there.
Yeah, Campbell definitely has. Not only do they get a lot of junior college guys at Campbell, but not the way I want to do things. But I definitely think we should utilize it.
Yeah, and I think we will in spots as we have, and it just depends on what our needs are, and obviously, Cliff and staff have. They have a great pulse on what's within the program and what's waiting in the wings. Just because we haven't heard of them or haven't seen but so much production from them doesn't mean that someone will not step up as they've done in the past. But part of the thing with the transfer portal is some of the recency bias there, just because of the success that the young man transferring in from Army had against us. And then also Parker from Coastal Carolina, because if that game on Saturday night that we lose 2-1 goes the other way, and then we go on to win the regional, some people would have still shared that same sentiment. But had we won the regional, not nearly as many people would be saying that about the portal.
Exactly,
and it's kind of just, it was one of those things, but like I said, I've heard from very good sources that we are very, very much active in the portal, looking to fill those needs that we'll have in 24.
If somebody will go back and listen to this show and count how many times we've all said the word portal together, I bet you it would be astronomical.
Portal is my favorite word. I love that word. I love talking the portal.
I know you do, particularly for football.
It's a new drinking game.
It's one of my favorite subjects. NIL, not so much.
Under 49.5.
I despise the NIL personally, but portal I'll talk about all day.
I'll take over on the 49.5 on portal.
By the way, if you don't think NIL makes a difference, look at Oklahoma just won the softball championship. 53 games in a row, guys, they've won. And in fact, they have a three-peat now. First time since the early 90s, I think, with UCLA. So if you don't think they have more NIL money for the softball team than they do for the baseball team for Oklahoma.
And that's something that the guys from the Oklahoma baseball experience that we had on our show, and then they had us on their show as well, as well as on some conversations with Twitter or on Twitter Spaces. That's something that they very readily admitted, and that they were trying to improve the NIL for Oklahoma baseball, because right now it was pretty much dwarfed by Oklahoma softball. And I guess that's not all that surprising, because like you said, they just won their third straight national title. But even in baseball last year, they played for a national title. So
I'm not.
Yeah, the problem with East Carolina and NIL is, we just don't have the money that Oklahoma has. We're Oklahoma doesn't really have to rely on their booster clubs anymore for facility upgrades, et cetera, because TV money, whereas East Carolina still does, and that's where the problem lies. Football is always going to be top priority for NIL or anything else. So you got to figure out how you make that. How do you distribute that money evenly? Because you want to use it for basketball too, and obviously baseball at East Carolina is a huge priority. So NIL is important, very important, unfortunately. But you got to figure out how you spread those dollars out. And I don't know. I don't have the answer to that question.
Which
like you're saying, you have $7 or $8 million coming in from our TV deal.
Yep.
As compared to
30 million.
Yeah. So and then think about it right now. I know we were discussing this a little bit earlier. At least Matt and I were, and I think it was in the group text as well. But if not, you guys are certainly.
Bubby, your audio just cut out, or either I'm frozen, one or the other.
Matt, I think they traded internet, so I think.
Yeah, Bubba just went completely out.
What happened there?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
yes.
You're back.
All right. But with the Pirates Unite Capital campaign, we still have 39 million or thereabouts to raise for that. You're obviously always
Jesus Christ, we're 39 million away.
We've raised 21 or 22 of 60 million.
But see, here's the thing. Let me ask you guys this.
And what is the timeline for the Pirates Unite?
But we're also paying on Town Bank Tower, and that's a great question that we'll have to. We'll see if we can get an answer to that when we have
20 years.
When we have John Gilbert on the show, because I want to say the cost of that ended up being around 70 million. I'd like to see how close we are.
Yeah, we borrowed 30 million, guys, for that project.
Boys and girls, children of all ages, and we have it with Town Bank. We have got to get more corporate sponsors. Is what we've got to do.
And then I
don't know how you do it, but we've got to.
You're raising about $8 million annually for the Pirate Club. And then you throw NIL on top of that when you're trying to raise right there what I said about 75 million or so, if not more.
Somebody get Vince McMahon on the phone, man. We need some corporate sponsorship.
Mr. Beast.
It's Mr. Beast, somebody.
All in the meantime, ordering season tickets for football as well. And so
exactly. But there's a thing though, guys. I think there's a strategy though. There's a lot of our older fan base, and rightfully so, maybe my age up, that are never going to give to NIL because they don't believe in it. That's fine. I say give to the Pirate Club, give it to the Pirates Unite. And there's maybe my age younger that they get the whole NIL thing. So we just see people.
Oh yeah, if it were up to me, my goal is to win.
Right.
And I say screw an indoor practice facility now. 5 years ago, that was the biggest thing. I don't right now. If you were a high school athlete, Bubba, Matt, both of you guys played division. Matt, you played Division I. Bubba, you played Division II or Division III. So Matt, if you were being recruited right now, what would be more important to you? If East Carolina was recruiting you, if they said, "Hey man, we got an indoor practice facility," or "Hey man, we can give you $20,000 a year," which one would be more important to you?
Well, coming from a guy who never had an indoor practice facility when he played college football, the money. I mean, obviously the money. I mean, that's the obvious answer. You're going to want the money. And that's the challenge at East Carolina. When other programs have both so readily available, how do we get to that point? And I mean, to your point though, we absolutely need the indoor practice facility. It's a huge need, but we've got to be competitive in other areas as well. And that's the challenge. And it all comes back to that TV contract. I mean, to your point, our entire athletic budget is less than, some of the TV contracts. Well, most of them out there you see in the SEC and the Big Ten and whatnot. So it's just you're just chasing. We're so far behind the 8 ball here. We're just playing catch up.
Well, the thing about it is in football versus baseball, and this is in baseball, we are competing with Alabama and Auburn and LSU, etc. In football, we ain't. All we got to do is figure out a way to have as much or more NIL money than the rest of the people in the New American. And that's one of the reasons I'm also so gung ho in the Sun Belt. If you put East Carolina in the Sun Belt, and I bet you we can out NIL any school in the Sun Belt. So in football. So the point of the matter is, can we get enough NIL funds to get most of the players we want to win the American football? Or baseball, football. We win it in baseball already. So we're talking NIL broad spectrum. I know this is supposed to be a baseball show, but if we can do that in football in the New American and win the conference, we have a chance to make the playoffs in the new system. So NIL is all relative to what you're talking about. It is interesting in baseball because theoretically with NIL, we are competing with the LSUs of the world.
Here's the thing. When we have the Hank even said that, let's see, that 1.75 would be necessary for, 85 scholarship players, 20,500 per year. Hank Hinton did a great job on Igo's show. What was that, a week or two ago? They actually were told for the American guys that we needed to raise for the American Conference to compete NIL wise $1 million. We have already raised over 530 some thousand. Just in really, they started in January pushing it really hard. So I said, well, if we can raise that kind of money in a short period of time, in like 4 or 5 months, we should really go after $2 million a year, because that would really put us at the upper echelon of the American. And that's what we need, is to win the American every single year. And like you said, Cal, that we haven't won a championship since 2009
in football. Yeah. I don't know how easy it would be. I don't know. It's like Bubba said. We're being spread way too thin with buying season tickets, given to the Pirate Club, Pirates Unite, NIL. I mean, like I said, we desperately need some corporate sponsorships, in my opinion, to do some of this heavy lifting, because the TV money ain't going to get no better anytime soon. I do think at some point this whole thing is going to go, eventually, whether it's 10 years from now, 15 years from now, or 5 years from now, eventually linear TV is going to go the way of the horse and buggy, and everything's going to go to 100% streaming.
Right.
And I think when that happens, your fan base and your actual numbers, eyeballs watching you damn games is going to matter so much more than media market and potential for watching the games. Because when it comes to streaming, it's not going to be flipping the channels. You're going to be seeking out the games, and you're not going to go by the old Nielsen rating system. You're going to have actual numbers of how many people are streaming your games. And we did quite well on ESPN Plus this past fall, according to that email that was sent out. I'm sure you guys saw that. It was the last letter from Gilbert.
Yep.
So I told Bubba earlier today, I bet you that East Carolina Appalachian State football game is the most watched non-Power 5 football game on ESPN Plus this fall. And the point of this is, at some point when it goes to all streaming, maybe that would get East Carolina into a power conference where we are making more money from the media and we're less reliant on, us.
Yeah. When you look at that, and guys, I know that some people are disappointed that we have the Michigan game on Peacock, but to your point, Kyle, you said this a long time ago. I think you can actually, if you're Peacock and NBC, you can see the number of people in Michigan, and you're also going to see a lot of people around Pirate Nation, whether it's North Carolina or beyond. Yeah. How many people are going to watch? How many eyeballs are on that game? And it'll be a lot, obviously, Michigan, but I think people will be pleasantly surprised to see the same thing for the Pirates.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were mad to see that game on Peacock, and the reason they did it was because they want to get new subscribers, and they know Michigan gives them that opportunity. But I think you're right. Peacock will probably be surprised when they see potentially 20,000 new subscribers coming from North Carolina all of a sudden.
Yeah, there's a lot more. You're right about that. There, with this whole argument about media markets and all that, when they see, as I've stated before, Tuscaloosa is such a big TV market. You can start naming it the Mississippi.
Well, they get the whole state, and I think that's another argument that I've always said we've had is, we can deliver the whole state, because one thing I've always said about this media market argument is, do the other teams in your state watch your games? And yeah, in football particularly, and I know we're supposed to be talking baseball, but in baseball too. Do NC State and UNC fans watch East Carolina games? You bet your ass they do.
Mm-hmm. They sure do, because it's like the whole adage, like the Yankees, Matt. People want to see the Yankees lose, and like our rivals want to see us lose, or is Pirate Nation wanting their team to win? So absolutely, I'm looking forward to that. I think the streaming thing is a great thing, and I have Peacock. I like it for WWE and a lot of other stuff on there with the movies and the channels they have inside of Peacock as well.
Yeah, so, I think a lot of people are negative on the streaming in general, and I get the frustration because you pay so much for cable and satellite already. But I do believe in the long run it's going to benefit East Carolina.
Amen.
I would love to see that data, for all 130 plus teams in FBS, the streaming data, because like you're saying, whether it's somebody viewing from Greenville, North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, LA, or,
Florida,
abroad somewhere, somebody that's watching ESPN plus.
Well, I'm sure we have a lot of women watching, not just one broad.
Yeah.
Broads.
Matt Semenza, hey, what you know about broads?
What you know about broads?
Yeah, hey Matt. Matt, what do you think about this whole streaming thing? Are you and I are closer in age? Do you think it's the way to go? I like it a lot, but I know there are older folks who are like, I can't find that Peacock. I'm like, it's not as bad as Facebook. Like, what was the game we had a couple?
Oh God, Facebook streaming!
It was awful.
Holy crap! Yeah, you had to go to Facebook, and then that was a nightmare.
I think to Kyle's point, it's kind of the way the world is heading, and you're seeing it right now. And I promise I'm not going to get into politics, and you guys know I love to do that, but I'm not going to. But you see this happening in the world of politics right now, where and love him or hate him, right? I'll just throw a name out there. Tucker Carlson had 20 million views on Twitter the other day on his first episode, over 20 million. So you see this shift happening in politics. People are moving away from your traditional CNN. Right. They're moving away from Fox. They're moving away from your traditional networks into streaming platforms. You see these personalities have enormous success with podcasts on Sirius and Twitter and different things. So to Kyle's point, it's happening. It's going to happen in sports. Yep. It's going to become more and more prevalent. And I do think you make a good point. The more fans, the more eyeballs that East Carolina brings to those games is going to pay dividends down the road. So it's kind of inevitable. It's the trend.
I know the late great Jeff Charles talked about. He mentioned it the very first time he was on our show here on the Sports Objective. Help me out, Bubba and Kyle, but back in the 90s, there was like a 900 number.
Like Team Line.
Team Line. Yeah. Thank you. Team Line. But he talked about, we had one of the highest, Team Line.
We were number 1 year. We were the most listened to school on Team Line, because at that time we had very little national television coverage, but we have a large fan base, and we were the most listened to school on Team Line. Yeah, it was a flat fee. You called the number and you listened to the whole game. Hopefully you had a speakerphone, and you listened to the whole game over the phone.
And so when you have something that old, like, I know that's archaic, but when you have something way back like then that's more challenging, or I know not necessarily dialing the number, but I'm just saying, like, it's not, to me, more, you think more about putting it on the television. A streaming is a lot easier, and I think that more people.
Well, I think it's comparable because it was numbers it's actual numbers you can measure, rather than the size of the media market. It's the actual eyeballs that team brings, just like we could prove how many listeners we brought through Team Line.
Right.
I can definitely believe that, because you take a look at that 91 season. And then that 91 season led to us having a deal with ESPN. We were one of only a couple teams, Notre Dame being the other, their deal with NBC. And that obviously is where Mike Oresco started to develop such a strong affection for East Carolina and what this program's capable of, and signed us to that deal with ESPN. But yeah, I remember back in those days in the Winston-Salem area, we were so starved for any type of coverage. We had a little, WTOB 1380 AM, not a very good reception at all. Sometimes it may not even have been good enough at our house. We'd have to, get in the car and drive somewhere until the game came in better. But it was, you had to move the antenna just right. Fortunately, those days are behind us.
Put your hand out the window, Kyle. Help us out, brother.
Yeah, you put like the old put aluminum foil on the but
rabbit ears.
Yeah. But fortunately those days are behind us, but I can certainly believe that. I remember, and obviously this is a little bit different because this was baseball, not football or men's basketball, but it was also a sign of the times there in the final year of the final year. Yeah, ignoring Craig's comments about my AOL dial-up. You've got mail. But
you've got mail.
But yeah, I recall back, I guess it was Coach O's final season in 1997. We didn't have a game tracker. We didn't have any audio. My dad and I would take turns. We were calling the press box at Granger Stadium to get the scores in the CAA baseball tournament.
Oh man!
Wow.
Well,
so otherwise we had to wait to the next day to get it in the Winston-Salem Journal newspaper. So
you're right about that.
The college baseball coverage as a whole has come a long way. I remember when Henry started covering games on 98.3, and he wasn't even doing all the games yet.
Yeah, but I just remember calling that press box, and then all of a sudden you were calling Granger Stadium, and I'm sure that may have been how they were instructed to answer the phone. And you hear Granger Stadium.
Well, I'll tell you guys, the exposure we got the last 2 years from being on traditional ESPN in the regionals versus Texas last year, this year versus for Virginia. I'll tell you, I had more people approach me in the last week up here in the Northeast to talk about East Carolina because they watched the regional against Virginia. I've had more people talk to me about that than I ever get from football. And I'm being dead serious.
That's interesting.
Wow.
It really is. I mean, I've had 15, 20 people come up to me in the last week. Hey, got a chance to watch East Carolina. They look great, blah, blah, blah. And same thing.
Because they're seeing us beat Oklahoma. And to them, that's a big deal because they know the name Oklahoma.
Correct. And last year, same thing with Texas. But tremendous exposure. I mean, those playing in the regional year in and year out, playing well against those opponents. I mean, it's valuable. And I just wanted to share that because I don't always get a lot of people up here in the Northeast talk to me about East Carolina. And it is interesting.
Well, does anybody in Connecticut watch college football? UConn is it could have been another reason they were watching. Matt, UConn's in the regionals also.
They're going to the Big 12.
There was a little buzz. I'll tell you, there was a little buzz. A lot of people thought that UConn should have hosted. I think they were.
They were a bubble host team.
Yeah, I mean they were right on the fringe. And
how about UConn, one of only 12 teams to have a bowl game, a basketball NCAA tournament appearance, and a baseball regional, one of only 12 teams. And we were only 30 teams to go to the regionals and a bowl game.
Wow.
That's interesting stat. Very interesting stat.
I have not heard that. That's awesome, Kyle. Makes perfect sense. But UConn, but guys, are you hearing more about that? UConn to the Big 12?
Not recently, but it'll be interesting to see with the inevitable moves, the Pac-12. Once the Pac-12 TV deal is done, you will either see a mass exodus. I think Washington and Oregon are going to go to the Big Ten. I think that's going to happen no matter what. because you're not just going to have two teams on the West Coast. So
what about Colorado and Coach Prime?
I think that's the thing, Bubba, is that there's a lot of talk that Colorado and Arizona are going to go to the Big 12 unless the Pac-12 strikes a TV deal that is unexpected. A lot of people think the Pac-12 TV deal is going to be very underwhelming. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know. I think if Pac-12 is in that 15 to 20 million range, I think you'll see Arizona and Colorado bail even before Oregon and Washington get the invite to the Big Ten, which I think is inevitable.
Yeah, the Arizona AD was on one of y'all's favorite shows, Paul Feinbaum, and he actually
Feinbaum.
I love him.
I'd love to rip his ears off his head.
No, I really do. But he actually was very, like, you could tell there was, like, even though he was being diplomatic, he was very it seemed like he was frustrated the way he answered about that very thing about leaving, and there was rumors that they're going to the Big 12, this week. And it's almost like a wait and see, like the commissioner, they said that there's a deal already done with the Pac-12 media deal. And I'll ask you guys this. I know we're running way long, but what kind of deal would it take for those teams to stay intact? I mean, for that league to stay intact? I mean, it seems like to me it's already.
I think Oregon and Washington are going to go no matter what. So I don't know. That's the whole thing. What kind of they've lost UCLA and USC. So if it's a foregone conclusion, and I think it is, that Oregon and Washington are going to the Big Ten eventually, what kind of TV deal can they get? I don't know.
At East Carolina.
Huh?
I'm joking. I said, we were just talking about eyeballs. I said, at East Carolina.
Well, I don't. What kind of TV deal can keep Oregon and Washington from the Big Ten? I would say nothing.
Nothing.
They're going.
What kind of TV deal? If they could get a TV deal of $20 million or more, regardless of Oregon and Washington staying, then I think you may have the four corner schools: Arizona, Colorado, Arizona State, and Utah stay. If it's below $20 million, it's going to depend on the language of the TV contract. Because
do you think they could get 30?
I think right now with Oregon and Washington, yes. But what is the language of the television contract going to say? Is it going to say if Oregon and Washington leave, the TV contract is going to be renegotiated? If I was the Pac-12 and I was running things, and I had I was talking to TV people, and I had a TV partner offer me $30 million, I would say, how about, with the caveat, if Oregon and Washington leave, the deal gets renegotiated, I would say, how about this? I would say, how about you go ahead and just give us $22 million, and we're not going to renegotiate no matter what happens. Because I think then you could get maybe a bigger commitment already from an Oregon, from an Arizona, et cetera. Because I think what's going to happen if they initially sign a $25-30 million TV deal and Oregon and Washington leaves, I think it's going to get renegotiated, and those four corner schools are all going to go, and the whole league's going to fall apart. So if I'm negotiating deals for the Pac-12, I'm trying to sign a deal that doesn't have any kind of caveats to it. No matter who leaves, this is what we get, even if that means you're taking less money up front. Do y'all agree with that or not?
Yeah, I mean, they actually talked about they're wanting them to sign a grant of rights deal.
Oregon and Washington's not going to do that.
So, like, it would have to be a huge amount of money to be locked in. But
what you may have happened, Dave, and Oregon and Washington may go ahead and get that, because Oregon and Washington, it's going to hold up TV negotiations, signing grant of rights, et cetera, et cetera. You could see, and you haven't heard much, but you didn't hear much speculation before USC and UCLA went to the Big Ten. It just happened all at once. Yep. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Oregon and Washington being invited into the Big Ten in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's sometime in what I was told, like what I've been hearing, like on national media, that the month of July is when the next dominoes are going to. We'll see, but July is what I'm hearing. Like, so that'll be interesting to see. Like, it's always fun, actually, not fun for maybe the people that are in that conference, but just interesting in the off season for those dominoes to drop. And how is it going to affect East Carolina?
Yep.
Well, what do you guys think about? All right. So let's just say these dominoes fall, right? Let's say you have, to Kyle's point, let's say you have Oregon, Washington go Big Ten. You have Colorado,
Utah, Arizona State, Big 12.
Big 12. You're left with your Stanford, your Washington State. They at that point, I'm assuming they go Mountain West, right?
Right. I don't know their
where
conference.
else can you go?
I don't know their conference bylaws, Matt. If the conference bylaws say the majority can vote to dissolve the league, then if the league is still standing,
right?
huh?
Isn't it like if you have 4 less schools? It's something in there.
I don't know. Each conference has their own bylaws. It's not all the
right.
same. So I don't know. If they're left with if they're left with Stanford, Cal, Washington State, and Oregon State, and the conference and the schools leaving can't vote to dissolve the league, I think the Pac-12 will survive, take who they want from the Mountain West, along with SMU and probably Tulane, and keep on trucking along and be what they'll be. If the bylaws say the teams leaving majority can dissolve the league, then I think those 4 probably do end up in the Mountain West. Although, if you're the American, do you try to get them?
I would.
Or how about how about this?
A best of the rest league where you take the best from the American, those Pac-12 schools in Mountain West to form a whole new league. Is that where you're going?
That's exactly where I'm going. A merger with the Mountain West, which I think gives you a little more protection. It gives you a little more stability. I think it makes the league a little more interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think you see a merger, but I could see a new league forming between those 3 leagues, those 4 schools from the Pac-12, the Mountain West, and the American, where you kind of select a handful of teams from each league and form a new coast-to-coast league.
I'll tell you, I would be a lot more excited about seeing something like that as an East Carolina fan than this future American conference that we're about.
Oh, yeah. You couldn't help but be.
Yeah, I mean, this is just, it's not appealing to me at all.
What do you think?
This new conference.
What do you think that if you had like that very thing where you had a merger or a new league, what kind of money could you get compared to the new league? The league, not the new league versus.
Well, let's say you have those 4 Pac-12 schools: Cal, Stanford, Washington State, Oregon State, and you add in Boise State, Colorado State, San Diego State, Air Force, SMU, Tulane, Memphis, East Carolina, South Florida, Temple, and now you got Air Force, and now you're going to bring in Navy, so you're probably going to get Army. That's a pretty good league.
Wow. Yeah, I really. That's what I.
You got all the academies together now in that league we just came up with. That's going to get you some television money. I mean, you got a lot of big media markets in there. You got a lot of good football schools. I would say probably somewhere in the. I would probably more than the current American.
Would you go?
I would say probably in the $15 million per team type deal.
That's what I would think too. It makes sense. I mean, and to Craig's point, I mean, if the PGA and the Live can merge,
exactly.
There's no reason why something like that can't happen.
Exactly.
And I think it's forward thinking. I think it's being proactive. I think it's being on offense instead of just kind of sitting back and waiting.
Reactive. Yeah. And,
exactly.
And another thing,
that very quickly, Dave, regarding the PGA LIV Live Golf merger, we will have East Carolina alum John McGinnis, who we've had on the program before. He will return to discuss that and more.
I thought you were going to say we were going. When are we going to get Varner on?
He's agreed to come on. We'll see. Maybe we can make that happen soon. But there has been some dialogue with HV3, and he's agreed to come on. Just a matter of he's so busy and finding the time to make it happen.
I'll tell you guys, is there a bigger hypocrite anywhere in the world than the commissioner of the PGA right now? I mean, he looks terrible. The players are going to revolt against him. He's done. he is toast. I'm telling. There's no way he can survive this. He can't.
I don't know what you're referring to.
Oh my God! Because the merger.
Well, what's wrong with the merger? Was he like so against the?
Just guys like Rory McIlroy and
Tiger.
Talk about the Saudi money.
Tiger Woods and different ones that stuck with the PGA, and now the PGA Tour goes and gets in bed with LIV, so to speak.
Yeah, they're talking about how
Saudis.
Yeah,
with the Saudis, gets in bed with the Saudis.
Well, I got
Hey,
so
let me ask you guys.
A lot of people consider it selling out.
Sure, yeah, blood money. Blood money.
Well, let me ask.
I'm familiar with this conversation with the WWE and them doing shows in Saudi Arabia. And, one of my biggest problems with them, and we'll talk about the LPGA, but one of my biggest problems with them is, the way the Saudis treat women. And, when those WWE shows go over there, the women have to completely cover up 100%. If I was a woman, I would refuse to go wrestle in Saudi Arabia. I wouldn't care what the payoff is. You couldn't pay me enough. And, that's my biggest problem. If you're a Muslim, you're a Muslim. I'm not going to get into religious faith, but I do have a big problem the way the Saudis treat women. And how does that affect the LPGA? Is the LPGA actually owned by the PGA, or is it its own standalone thing?
I think it's owned by the PGA off the top of my head, but I'd have to.
Okay, see, how does that? How do those ladies feel about this?
If let me ask you guys a question, because we all want the Pirates to win. Let's say the Saudis or the LIV or whatever. What if they gave us $20 million a year? Would you like soften up to the Saudis on that, or?
Oh, I'd take the money. Why not? Everybody else is doing it. Yes, sir, take it.
Build a practice facility in 1 year.
We'll have sure, great. Yeah, take the money. I don't see that happening. I have no idea why the Saudis would want to buy in East Carolina.
I'm just saying, like, as far as we love the Pirates, and if they were to
I would take the money. Yeah, of course. We're in no position not to. At the same time, like, if they came to me and wanted to give me $2 million to go do something in Saudi Arabia, I'd go do it. If they offered it to my wife, I'd say, hell no, you're not going. I don't care how much money they're offering you, because their reputation of how they treat women is not very well.
And I hate the idea that the Saudis are getting their hands into everything. They're all over boxing now. You see some of the biggest heavyweight title fights in the last few years are in Saudi Arabia, and I just hate that they're getting their hands into everything. And personally, I want to do everything I can to keep them away.
I agree
from American sports, because now that now here's what gets really scary. Now that they've infiltrated the PGA, who's to say they don't try to infiltrate the NFL? The NBA, and if that sounds crazy, think about it from this perspective.
Well, I don't think it sounds crazy at all,
6 months ago. Yeah, I mean, because one thing we've learned is that everything is about money. Everything is about money, and they have unlimited financial resources.
Well, look, Matt, you didn't know this probably, but right there in Connecticut, Stamford, Connecticut, where WWE is headquartered, until their merger with the UFC, ended up happening when Vince announced he was selling. It looked like at one point the Saudis was going to buy the WWE. So at some point, do they buy, an NFL franchise? I'd be willing to bet you money they do.
There's no doubt, and that's what scares me a little bit about. That's why I'm so against the PGA merging with the LIV. I just, for me, I didn't like it at all.
I mean, they might put another team in, the Oakland. Oakland needs a team. They could be the Oakland Terrorist.
Oh man! Wow.
That's great.
Yeah, and speaking of which, Oakland, Oakland is going. Did you guys see that about with a baseball show about how much the Oakland A's owe like for the Coliseum? It's ridiculous. Like, how in the world are they going to have? I don't know how they're going to be able to pay that off, and they definitely need. Speaking of Saudi money, it was like, was it 45 million that they would have to pay the lease agreement to get out of that dump of the Oakland? I mean, there's no question.
They're going to do it. They're going to do it. I mean, they want out of Oakland. They're going to Vegas. I mean, I grew up an A's fan. I became a Cubs fan as a teenager, but as a small child, I loved the A's because of the Bash brothers. You had Canseco McGuire. You had Ricky Henderson stealing bases. They were so much fun to watch. So, part of me hates to see the A's leave Oakland, but, it is what it is. The economy in that area is just so bad.
It's awful.
Yeah. So.
No doubt. I mean, they've lost every – hey, Matt, you're a pro guy. They've lost every single – the A's is the last thing that they have.
Yeah.
They've lost everything.
The Warriors,
That city is so crime infested, guys. Nobody wants to be there.
It's amazing Detroit still has the Tigers and the Lions and the Pistons.
Well, Detroit is actually having a resurgence. There's a lot of people that are buying houses and fixing them up. These really like rundown houses. There's all kinds of people that.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right, Kyle. There was a time that Detroit was a huge eyesore, but they're starting to. I don't know how long that takes to be. Will it be like re-energized, revitalized, whatever? But there's been some movement there. But definitely Oakland hasn't done jack. And they definitely would. They haven't done anything to save their teams. They're politicians, so.
No, they got bigger problems. They can't. They can't. You can't get blood out of the turnip. They can't afford to tax their people to build a new stadium. I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, Oakland is a city that's the West Coast equivalent of a Rust Belt town.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, you lose the Raiders. I mean, the Raiders should be in Oakland, but Vegas is a calling, and they're going to get. Vegas is going to get a basketball team, NBA, for long. In fact, I heard this last week. There's changing the name. We've known Vegas for many years, the nickname of Sin City. Now they're calling it Sports City. So we'll see how that plays out. Do you guys have a?
I agree with that, Dave. I do think you're going to see in the next 5 years an NBA team go to Vegas.
I mean, wouldn't you guys like, if we go to Vegas, wouldn't you like to see a sports team while you're there? There's going to be a lot of people like us that are going to see it. You're not?
No. If I'm going to Vegas, the last thing on my mind is going to be going to a ball game.
I'm not touching that one, Matt.
Kyle, tell me your top 5 places you would go before that.
Kelly.
What kind of farm?
Amber, Lisa.
Some kind of, I said farm.
You said top 5 places. Top 5 places. There you go. No, but Vegas would be a lot of fun. Honestly, I'm being facetious here. But I honestly, I don't associate besides betting and gambling and boxing. I don't associate Vegas with going to a ball game. Although depending on what time of year, I may go to an A's game if I was in town. I would have. I'm not an NFL guy. I would have no interest in going to a Raiders game. But I may go to an A's game if I was in town.
All right. What about you, Bubba?
You find Kyle in the black hole. Wearing
what?
some of the paraphernalia or whatnot that the Raiders fans wear. Yeah. I can see Kyle dressed in all black and like
I dress in all black with pirate stuff on it all the time. That's my go-to, Bubba. So
that's what you have to do. Yeah, you could do that, and they would think you're a Raiders fan.
Oh.
It'll be some kind of cool. Definitely, I'm going to Vegas
But yeah, Dave, to answer your question, if I happen to be in Vegas and depending on what's going on from a sports standpoint, whether it was college or pro, UNLV or obviously the Raiders.
The NBA, the NBA are gonna add 2 teams. They're gonna give Seattle the Supersonics back, and they're having a Vegas team. That's what I've been told. Have you heard that, Matt? You're an NBA guy.
Yeah, they've been rumored. Seattle's been rumored for years and years, and I was surprised when the Supersonics left Seattle, to be honest, years ago.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely a possibility too.
The owner of the Seattle Supersonicos used to celebrate Hanukkah.
Cal will be a distraction of the stadium with all the glitter on his clothes from the other stops in Vegas.
Greg, I'm gonna just go ahead. You can figure this one out. I'm not wasting my time in a strip club.
Okay. Like I said, you're going to be going to the ranches outside of Vegas in Nevada, however you pronounce it. So, absolutely. We're at 2 hours now, over 2 hours. Bubba, I know that we're really excited.
I won't finish that off.
What the hell was that, Bubba?
This is Doubtfire.
No, I'm talking about from the Hangover where he was rolling up.
You know what, Dave? I thought he was doing that Mrs. Doubtfire thing too.
I'm sorry, I forgot about it. Yeah, the Hangover is one.
Yeah, it's too high pitch. Toodaloo, mother. There you go. I'll let Kyle finish it off.
Mother truckers.
Oh well.
You can just say truckers, Bubba. Just say truckers.
Yeah. We have a great interview this afternoon. We had with the AAC champion Lady Pirates, Kim McNeil, the head coach. She sat down with me. We had a great time this afternoon, and great to be able to talk to her about a new contract and the players that are coming in. By the way, Kyle, I make a prediction right now. Late December. Hey, Bubba, am I wrong on this? Late December, you and Jessica, Bubba, and I will be at a game in Williams Arena because there's a huge team coming for the Lady Pirates. That's all we can say right now. They haven't signed on the dotted line yet, but you guys can probably figure out who it is. But that's going to be huge for Lady Pirates.
I can't figure out who it is at all.
Would it be Dawn Staley and the
Blanca Doodle Doo?
Yep, they're from
who'd you say?
South of the border.
The Gamecocks.
Oh, we're playing them in
the skit from Howard Stern and Private Parts. Blanca Doodle Doo.
The
men's Gamecocks are coming to Benji's this year, so
that's right.
Why not have the ladies?
I mean, if we don't have guys, we don't have like 5,000 people for that game. That place will be packed.
Well, we never did for UConn.
No, but I think
we did.
Yeah, there's a different era for women's basketball too at East Carolina.
That's one of those things. The whole they were showing up to watch UConn like people showed up this year to watch the Houston's men's team. I mean, obviously, it's more extreme on the women's side, and not to mention UConn, having a decent number of alumni in the Raleigh Triangle area.
No doubt about it. That's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see if that comes to fruition. And next Tuesday, we'll have an opportunity to sit down with John Gilbert, the director of athletics for East Carolina. Looking forward to that. A lot of great things to be talking about.
Well, how did I miss that? The Gilbert's coming on the show Tuesday?
Yes, we texted.
I feel like I'm being left out.
No, we texted you. Look at your group.
This will be a recorded audio only, and so we'll have that for you. Probably Tuesday evening is when we'll air it.
Okay, what time you guys get with me after the show? What time we're doing that?
We'll let you know. We'll get your group text.
You're still in the circle of trust.
Well, good. There's so many damn group texts, guys. We got 3 or 450 groups here, so I missed half the mess.
Group text.
Yeah, I definitely need to make arrangements with work so I can take part in that interview.
No doubt, and we're looking forward to that. Ryan,
just then, John Gilbert cancels the interview.
I hope not. I don't think so. We'll see. That's going to be fun because we've got, again, a lot to talk about with him and a lot of good stuff with Pirates Unite, the Michigan game. There's scheduling. There's all kinds of the indoor practice facility. We'll see all about that, but that'll be next Tuesday. And if you have a question you would like, Bubba, they can obviously hit us up on email, right? That they can get a question in if there are folks that want to ask John Gilbert a question for next week.
Yep. You can always reach out to us at thesportsobj@gmail.com or DM us on Twitter at thesportsobj. You can also reach us on IG, Instagram. That is at the Sports Objective, and the same thing on TikTok. Also Facebook as well.
Yeah, a lot of good topics to discuss with John, from NIL to conference realignment to scheduling to obviously the success we had on the diamond and on the court and on the field this year, et cetera, from Pirates Unite. lots of things to talk about with John.
And season tickets.
Football season tickets.
Yeah. That'll start picking up now that baseball is over. In the next few weeks, that'll pick up. So
yeah, we haven't had a chance to talk about. You got Michigan on Peacock. You got Marshall. We announced today on ESPNU, 4 p.m. Appalachian State will be on ESPN Plus at 3:30 p.m. Gardner Webb, ESPN Plus 6 p.m. and SMU ESPN Thursday night, October 12th at 7 p.m.
Yeah. So far so good. I love the times so far look great for the Pirates for sure. And by the way, before we forget, let's do a pgxgloves.com. You want to do a picture of the year, guys, and player of the year? I'm putting you guys on the spot here. But
yeah, I got a picture of the year, Trey Savage.
Yep.
Player of the year, I'll go Will Coxon. Or no, Moylan. Moylan, yeah.
What do you think, guys? Matt, what do you think?
I'd have to agree with Kyle on that. You Savage and Moylan with a huge bounce back year.
That's why Moylan goes, is because he had the sophomore slump, if you will, and this year, his junior year, he bounced back. So, what about you, Bubba?
Just to be a little bit different, because he's also very deserving, I'll go with my pgxgloves.com pitcher of the year, Danny Beal. Danny Beal had out of the Pirates, 66 games. He appeared in 31 of those, and opponents hit something like a $1.95 against him.
It was unbelievable, yeah.
So yeah, you can't go wrong with Trey Savage or Danny Beal as your pgxgloves.com pitcher of the year. And as far as the player of the year, definitely have to think a little bit more about that. You have Will Coxon, who was so good both offensively and defensively. Joey Barini, we talked about what he did on both sides. Carter Cunningham, who had entered the transfer portal. There's that word again, portal. He decided to come back, and are we glad he did? And he was a first team All AAC player and hit 317. Hit 8 home runs and just had a heck of a year. And obviously you also had Jacob Starling and Josh Moreland, who had tremendous years. And then you have a kind of a sentimental favorite, Lane Hoover. All he did for the Pirates.
Bubba's saying the whole damn team.
No, I'm not, I didn't. I'm just
Bubba,
saying, I was just illustrating how much harder that decision is to make, as opposed to the pitching side. Let's see.
.com team of the year.
Just buying some time until I made a decision. But no, also illustrating how many options you have there. Shoot, I'll go.
Bubba's struggling with this, fellas.
I'll go Justin Wilcox, I guess.
All right. I went with Coxon initially and changed it to Moylan. So I like your pick, Bubba.
Yeah, there you go. It's good to be different.
Yeah, there are a few there that you couldn't go wrong with.
Now, fellas, I have my wife in the background chirping away at me, requesting now that the Pirates are out that you guys show some loyalty to the Gators. All right.
Southern Miss to the top.
I can live with the Gators. I can leave with the Gators.
Dave's in agreement. Kyle's on the Southern Miss train.
Love you.
Yeah, I can go Gators.
He'll pull for the Gators to beat the Cox.
Oh yeah, are they playing in the Supers? Yeah, I'll definitely take Florida over South Carolina.
I'm going Florida all the way, and that I can definitely pull from in the Supers for sure, no doubt. All right, do you guys have anything before we go? I don't want Chrissy and Justin.
In the words for Chrissy, and the words of that senator that used to be from Florida, go Gator.
Go Gator.
Go Gator.
I would like to congratulate Coach Urban Meyer of the Florida Gators on his victory.
Go Gator.
Go Gator.
Urban Meyer.
Great. Well,
the internet. If you don't know what we're talking about, look it up on YouTube.
All right. Well, we put a bow on the 2023 season. Disappointing, obviously, we'll be playing this weekend, but very proud of the team and 47-19, winning that four straight regular seasons of the champions in the AAC. And, of course, regional championship final at UVA coming up short. But no doubt it's going to be a great 2024 campaign. All right. Appreciate everybody this year watching, of course, Extra Innings. We'll be back in February as we will continue the show. But as far as this specialty show, we do it just obviously in season. Appreciate pgxgloves.com. Thank you, Kaz. We're another guy we're going to have on the show very soon. We work out his schedule. Mark Minikazi, of course, the third baseman during the Randy Mazie era of the baseball ECU Pirates. Thank you very much, Craig. It was so great to see you in Charlottesville. And that makes me think about, it was so great to see all our friends. There's so many great fans in Pirate Nation that we become friends with because of the show. We appreciate you very, very much. And I'm glad that everybody got back home safely. And hey, tough day at the office for us, but we're looking forward to next February for sure. All right, for Matt, Kyle, Bubba, appreciate you, Bubba, behind the scenes as well. I'm Dave Richmond, and this has been Extra Innings on the Sports Objective. Good night, everybody. And as always, go Pirates.
I'm a pirate down of my soul, and I don't back down, not at all. Find out when the cannons explode, from the sidelines down to the post. Put it down like not even close, all out to the last whistle blow. From the flag with the soul and crossbones. Everybody stand up, get your hands up, let a team know that we got their back. This is our house, this is our town, our time, everyone, I copy that. Everybody in the stands go bananas, scream loud, but don't hold back. Every foot, every yard, every first down, every touchdown with the cannons blast. Get it on, get it all, get the wave going like a